welcome to another Fight the Night review. This was for the Fight the Night that took place at Madison Square Garden in New York City, United States City. And it was the opener of the main card, and personally I think it should have been bumped up a bit higher, between Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler. So, yeah, this fight, it was great. I'm going to tell you how great it was, as I try and break down the rounds as best as I can, and I will probably miss a few things, but let's just go. I'm excited. So the fight begins, as always, with round one, and immediately Justin goes for a leg kick right out of the gate, and doesn't land, but obviously that's one of the things Justin does. He's really good at kicking the legs out from under you, and basically, round one is an absolute scrap, just incredible stuff. Michael is the first one to start landing really big shots. He's got Gaethje on the back foot for a lot of it. He lands a really great uppercut at one point. Gaethje is still setting things up really well with his own right hands and some really good kicks. Round one is a lot of headhunting though. There's not really a lot of low work except for Justin going for the leg kicks on Michael. But Michael does seem to sort of be coming off with the better of it, even though he's getting busted open a bit. He does land a big shot on Gaethje at sort of the midway point-ish of the round, and starts following that with some incredibly heavy strikes. He does almost actually win at this point, but Gaethje manages to fight back and bounce back, and there's a great moment where Michael lands a big right hand, then Gaethje lands one, then Michael Chandler sort of does the pro wrestling no-sell and lands a flying knee on Gaethje, and that's basically the crux of the fight. Boiled down into round one, which was absolutely fantastic. Michael obviously did more than just that. He was going for the head a lot, landing quite a lot of his shots as well. Gaethje eventually started to use his head movement, started to open up a bit more with the jab, started to come back a little bit, but by the end of round one, I do give it to Michael. I definitely think he was just landing much heavy shots. He was eating a lot of them as well, because Gaethje can hit a shot like no one's business. But, like, Gaethje was throwing a lot of his own. However, Michael just seemed to land at a heavier clip. He was just rocking Gaethje a little bit more, so I do give it in favour of him. And honestly, all in all, it was just a really fun round to watch, regardless of who he thought won. I'm just leaning more towards Chandler, personally. We then get to round two, and Gaethje is able to implement his game plan a little bit better, mostly because Michael did sort of gas himself out. He did go a bit too much in with the striking in round one. He did obviously land a lot on Gaethje in round one. In round two, he's a bit more hesitant to really engage a lot, and Gaethje is just making him pay for it, really, like opening up again with the leg kicks, which is making Michael start to move his left leg back, and which is not a great thing for him because he's usually an orthodox fighter. He's not great from the southpaw position, as we do find out a bit later in round three. But yeah, he's his left leg, his lead leg is busted up badly, and Justin is following that up with some really good shots. And there's a moment bit halfway point in round two where Gaethje lands a hell of an uppercut and Michael is just down. He's completely down. And Gaethje does follow that up with some really great ground strikes. It does sort of turn into a sprawl position where Michael does a really good job of defending himself and holding onto Gaethje's leg, preventing Gaethje from really doing a lot, but they do eventually stand back up. I was going to say they were stood back up, but the referee for the fight did not stand them back up. Like, they got up on their own. And forgot to point this out at the end of round one as well. They did show some respect with a hearty fist bump. And yeah, round two, Gaethje was definitely keeping his cool, much like he was in round one during exchanges. Michael did land some really good shots in round two. He was even landing a couple of his own leg kicks, but they weren't landing with as much force as Gaethje's were. However, near the end of round two, about like 20 seconds or so left, there was a scramble, and Michael landed a really good right hand, and has sort of accidentally grazed Gaethje's eye. This was with not a lot of time left, so Gaethje was obviously put against one of the corners by the ref, and the ref asked him if he was alright. Gaethje said, "Yeah, I'm alright, but he poked my fucking eye out." And Gaethje was still fine, like his right eye was still okay by the time they got back into it, and there wasn't really a lot of time left, but the fans, who were absolutely rabid for Gaethje and against Chandler, heavily booed Chandler for the accidental eye poke, because I do believe it was accidental. I don't think he meant to do it. I think he meant to throw a left hook to follow the right one, but I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to push Justin back. It happens sometimes. It wasn't a deliberate thing, but that aside, despite some takedown attempts from Chandler in round two, I give round two to Gaethje. I definitely think he had the better of it. The uppercut was a big help, and he was faking out Chandler a lot with that in round one, faking the overhand right to go for an uppercut, and he made him pay for it. And he was busting Chandler open as well. He started to get a cut on his eye, and he was bleeding when he was knocked down on the ground. So yeah, round 2, I'd give more in favour to Justin Gaethje. Round 3 starts, and it's very clear that Chandler is staying in a southpaw stance sort of on purpose at this point. His left leg is completely buggered up from the leg kicks from Gaethje, and it even puts a hamper on a lot of his knockout power, although Chandler eventually does start doing something smart in round 3. He starts going for the body, which is something that neither of them really did a lot up until round 3. They were mostly just headhunting, you know, and as I mentioned a couple of times now, Justin was going for the leg kicks, Chandler went for a few, but they were mostly trying to swing and knock each other's blocks off, so to speak. But yeah, Gaethje ripped some really good hook combos to the body and was following that up with some really good combos upstairs as well. Gaethje was keeping Chandler pushed back a bit with some really good rights, was faking that uppercut. Chandler was very smart not to get caught out by it in round 3. And, you know, Gaethje going with the left jab as well. And Chandler did go for a couple more takedown attempts, and he eventually got one about halfway-ish. There's been a lot of halfway action in this fight, but he got one about halfway-ish in, and the crowd popped for it, which was kind of cool. And even though he did get a really good slam on Gaethje, Gaethje managed to slip out from beneath and sort of had Chandler pushed against the cage, and he had his back. There was a pretty good scramble from after that, and there was a really good sprawl following. And then it gets to a weird point in the match where there's a minute and a half left, and Gaethje is just not engaging, and Chandler is doing a lot of what he'd been doing for quite a majority of the fight, which is just like taunting, trying to get the crowd behind him, telling Gaethje to hit him. Gaethje was like, no, I think I've won the fight by now. And there's the last minute and 20 seconds of the fight are just the two men walking around each other, Gaethje sort of faking some stuff, but not really landing anything. But yeah, eventually it ends. The fight ends, and Gaethje is crowned the winner by unanimous decision, which I'm alright with, although I don't like the fact that he was given all 3 rounds. I don't fully agree with that. I think Gaethje definitely won round 1. But yeah, it was an absolutely incredible fight. Even with the weird stuff that happened near the end of it, I don't know, it was just very strange. But they did show a lot of respect to each other with really good fist bumps. They were both taken to the hospital, even though Gaethje looked a lot better coming out of it than Chandler did. Gaethje getting the win, I don't have any complaints about. I don't really have a lot of complaints about this fight. I don't really have, except for the last bit, which was weird because they just stood around looking badass and not actually fighting, you know. I like my Fight of the Night to have fighting in them, but this fight did have plenty of fighting from both ends. Gaethje landed hard, Chandler landed hard. They both really went in for it, and I absolutely enjoyed this fight. It could very well be in my top 10. I think a lot of people predicted this being the best fight of last night, and they were right to do so because this fight is kind of fucking awesome. But that'll about do it for another Fight of the Night review, and another one that was a hell of a lot of fun to go over. The next thing I'll see you for will be maybe an episode of Music of the Week, because I'm not going to be doing any PBW versus AVW because I just did the pay-per-view Break Even 4 on Friday, and I'm going to put that show up later. Not like immediately after this. I'm going to put it tonight. And God, that match between Stone and Stone and Spartacus, excuse me, that was 5-star worthy. Oh my god. Anyway, this fight was incredible. Go check it out for yourself because it is worth the hype. And I'll see you for whatever the hell's next, basically. Yeah, that'll about do it. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.